Hey guys, just a quick reminder from Tiger Leadership that today is the last day to register to audition for the talent show in Mrs. Dyke's room, which is now in the old weight room in the gym. So come see her by the end of the day today if you want to register for the talent show.
Thank you, Brad. All right, good morning. We have a special event planned for you today, and I'd like you to stand with me, and let's start with the Lord's Prayer. Please join me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you may sit down. It is my sincere pleasure today to introduce to you Father William Bill Lewis. He is Rector Emeritus at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church. In the early 1980s, Father Lewis brought his family here to Holy Trinity, and he came to lead Holy Trinity Church. He served there for many years, and during those years, he was instrumental in the growth of both the church and the school. He worked hand in hand with former head Kathy Ford to actually make this campus a reality. And he has so much to share for you today. And I am so grateful that he is here because he has played a big role in my personal life. He was my priest, he was my mentor, and he is my dear friend, Father Lewis.
Thank you, Dr. Cobb. What a treat to be here. Start here. Go anywhere. Ever hear that? When, where, why did Holy Trinity start? In the next few minutes, you're going to have the answer to all those questions and a lot more questions you never even dreamed of. It was the 1950s. It was the best of times and the worst of times. Our world was really a frightening place. To tell you the truth, there were a lot of things to worry about. We were on a collision course with what we thought would be a nuclear war. This time, however, we had two nations building up arms for one another. There was an aggressive rising communist Soviet Union, Russia, and the United States. World War II had only ended 11 years earlier, and the Korean War only 3 years earlier. And so, we had elected a president who was a World War II national hero, President Dwight Eisenhower. It was a second term of office by the mid-50s, and we Americans were living with the knowledge that nuclear weapons were proliferating. We were testing new weapons, but others were testing nations' weapons as well. We were in a nuclear weapons war race. And a very critical part of that race was taking place right here in Brevard County. Now you may wonder, what was it like living in Melbourne in the 1950s? Well, the population was about 10,000 people. When you stepped outdoors in those days, you were brushing off mosquitoes. They were everywhere. They swarmed your face and your arms and your legs. If you were fortunate enough to own a television set, the picture would always be black and white, of course, but you also had to mount an antenna on the roof of your house so that you could pick up that one lonely station, Channel 6 from Orlando. And what would you watch, aside from wrestling? Well, you could watch Leave It to Beaver. Do any of you like rock and roll? The man at that time was, yes, you guessed it, Little Richard. And Elvis Presley. Well, Elvis, he was all shook up and gyrating the hound dog. He ain't nothing but a hound dog. Ever hear that? That's all we heard in the 50s. You could buy a new house in Melbourne for about $12,000. It would measure maybe 1,300 to 1,500 square feet. You could fill your gas tank of a car for which you had paid maybe $2,400 for. You could fill that gas tank for the gasoline 18 cents a gallon. Your monthly salary, if you were lucky and had a good job, would be maybe about, $375 a month. Your breakfast bacon would cost 60 cents a pound. You buy a dozen eggs for 28 cents. Want to go to the movies? Got a quarter in your pocket? Go down to the Van Croy Theater on New Haven Avenue, and you can watch The Bridge Over the River Kwai. We had a bad flu epidemic in 1957. The population of the United States at that time was 170 million, about half of what it is today. And 140,000 people died from that flu epidemic. I remember my 28th birthday. It was October 4th, 1957. And sensors had picked up a strange beep, beep, beep from the skies. It was discovered that the Soviet Union had launched a manned satellite. With that news, oh, by the way, does anybody know the name of that satellite? Sputnik. There were repercussions in the United States that you couldn't imagine. The civil, political, and military emphasis was all turned toward space. And there took place in Brevard County a metamorphosis from the Mosquito County to the Space Coast. Cape Canaveral became the epicenter of space activity. Up to this time, our county, Brevard County, had been largely rural and agricultural. Cattle, citrus, seafood were the major products coming out of this county. But in the early 50s, There came to be a kind of new energy in this place. The Army Corps of Engineers spent $500 million on Cape Canaveral and the renewal improvements at Patrick Air Force Base. Then in 1950, these two men that you see on the screen, to the left, Homer Denius, to the right, George Shaw, had an idea. They started a little company. They called that company Radiation, and they had 22 employees. By 1953, they had 75 workers. And Radiation, that company, manufactured antenna systems, semiconductors, and power plants for missiles. We know them today as L3 Harris Corporation. But that meant that engineers, scientists, physicists, technicians, carpenters, and other workers were flocking to this county, but there was no homes for them to live in. And so they lived in trailer parks, yes, in motels, and even in their own cars. The population of this county from 1950 to 1960 increased 371%. The infrastructure, the roadways, the bridges weren't able to accommodate all of these people. We needed a commercial airport. By the way, you know you've all been to our airport? Do you know that during World War II, that airport was a naval aviation training station? Also billeted in that area were over 600 German war prisoners right here in Melbourne. By the way, those Navy pilots that were trained here had to learn to land on aircraft carriers and take off from carriers. We needed expanded medical care and a larger hospital. More schools had to be built, teachers hired, requiring more money, more efficient government, and you might added a lot of creativity and visionary thinking in our county. The public schools here in the mid-50s were so crowded that they had to have half-day sessions for all the kids. You either went to school from 9 in the morning till noon or from 1 until 4, only half a day. I didn't hear any applause. Well, the schools were really crowded. So, recognizing this terrible pressure being put on the public schools, Father Alex Boyer, who was the rector at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church, and members of the parish got an idea. They should try to help out. What could be done to help alleviate the pressure on the public schools? And so they conceived the idea of establishing a school. Now, those people required a lot of strength. They had to have imagination. They had to have a commitment. And I might add, also a lot of courage to go out on a venture like that, because there weren't very many of them. So, they decided to try to fix the problem and therefore start a school. That was in 1955. At that time, the church, now the chapel at Holy Trinity, was located at the corner of Fee Avenue and Route 1. It's a vacant lot today. They purchased 2 acres of ground on West Strawbridge Avenue and Peachtree Street for $6,500. They raised another $85,000 and they began construction of classrooms leased in 57 to the public schools. And by the way, they named that school that year, the public schools did, Greenway. And then, September 3rd, 1957, 65 years ago, Holy Trinity School opened its doors to 90 children. You see them there, kindergarten through 6th grade. So the Holy Trinity way of education for the whole person to excellence began. As the years passed, 2 campuses were developed, enrolling pupils from kindergarten through 12th grade. This upper school campus was begun and completed in the year 2000, with additions of the junior high in 2003. The Scott Center, the building we're in right now, the Center for Worship and Performing Arts in 2005. During those 65 years, thousands of girls and boys, young men and women, have received a solid foundational education at Holy Trinity Academy. And you are, and every one of them are, a part of this great tradition that is the Holy Trinity Academy, Tigers, and what have you. I wish we could bring all of the alumni here. It would more than fill this building a couple of times over. I wish you could see them, hear their stories of hard work, of disappointments, and successes. They are husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, teachers, engineers, members of the military, nurses, entrepreneurs, scientists, doctors, artists, industrialists, scholars, homemakers, technicians, attorneys, athletes, accountants, business leaders, musicians, those in government, journalists, police officers, people in television, theater, and on it goes. As you sit here today, as the classes of 2022 through 2027, you are enjoying the additions of the Tiger Athletic Complex, just completed last year. And next week, as early as next week, some of you will be sitting in on the newly renovated classrooms in room 200, building 200. In the next 2 to 3 years, we are planning to transform the upper school main campus as we renew and reconfigure our current spaces, as well as adding new classrooms, building, a whole new building between the gym and the junior high. The Holy Trinity way molds achieving effective young women and men. You are the kind of people who, appreciate, and employ the ethic of hard work, who possess the skills and the intellectual curiosity to be lifelong learners, who honor and apply in their living the Judeo-Christian moral code. You are people who have the character to serve the public interest and to make this world of ours a better place. This is an education that addresses every single aspect of human nature, and it neglects none. The Holy Trinity way, and you're a part of it, is priceless. This school's objective is to educate the soul, the reason, the imagination, the intellect, the body, the memory, the voice, the emotions, the affections, and the aesthetic sense. To also stimulate your moral conscience. St. Paul believed, and so do I, that the purpose of life is to allow God to guide us, all of us, to maturity, to the full measure of the fullness of Jesus Christ our Lord. Start here and go anywhere. In fact, this is a good time to do it. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thank you.